This is Joel Vargas, Vice President of Jobs for the Future. I'm very pleased to have the opportunity of speaking to all of you today about one of my favorite subjects, early college and dual enrollment strategies that raise the college and career readiness and success of high school students. I want to start by thanking the Minnesota Department of Education for inviting me to do this presentation and for your interest in expanding dual enrollment to more students in the state. The recent interest of the legislature and other education leaders in Minnesota in providing more accelerated pathways from high school into college provides you with a great opportunity to try to do things differently in support of students' readiness for college and career. And expanding early college and dual enrollment strategies can certainly play an important role in this. I'm just sorry that I'm unable to be with you in person today, but I hope that the issues that I raised in this video presentation can be helpful to you as you try out new strategies in your communities. I've also tried to provide you with links and references to resources that you can access after the presentation and use later as you move forward in implementation. I'm going to start by saying a few words about JFF's work and our history with these issues. We're an over 30-year-old nonprofit organization. We're based in Boston and our work is national, and we actually have some staff in Washington, D.C. as well. We focus on ensuring that more low-income youth and struggling workers are prepared to succeed in today's economy. The strategies for doing so focus on creating stronger paths to post-secondary degrees and credentials, the attainment of which are increasingly the key to entering family-sustaining work and the middle class. We work on strategies for populations across the education to workforce pipeline. As this slide tries to depict, we try to fix the places where people fall out of the pipeline toward the credentials they need by better aligning K-12 and higher ed systems with labor market demands. The bottom row shows examples of strategies that we support and promote across various phases of the pipeline. The division that I oversee at JFF primarily focuses on those on the left-hand side, that is those for youth in high school who are at risk of not graduating college and career ready. And our work is marked by a commitment to innovation and scale. We do our work by developing ideas and designing strategies that are evidence-based and on applying and testing them out in the field. We help those who are implementing these innovations through technical assistance, the creation of data analytics and other tools and resources that help to guide them, and by documenting what's working and strategies for addressing challenges. We also work on state and federal policies to remove barriers to implementation, and if the strategies are producing positive results, we create incentives for expansion. One of the strategies that we've been bullish on for some time now is the innovation that's taken place over the past decade in dual enrollment. I am defining that here in its broadest terms. That is when high school students are enrolled in college courses. We've seen innovators in the field use dual enrollment as a lever for raising college readiness and success by using it as a way to expose students through experience to the academic expectations and metacognitive demands of college and habits of successful college students. We also have seen them use it to gain momentum in college before attending as full-time students and incent that momentum when the tuition is free or discounted through the promise of reduced tuition costs later by finishing some college earlier, and by encouraging students to see themselves as college material. These experiences are particularly important for low-income and first-generation college goers who otherwise have much less contact with family and other networks that we know that know really how to help them navigate a path to and through college. I've always found it worthwhile to try to distinguish the variants of dual enrollment and its cousins, if you will. I've tried to depict that here visually by showing a host of what can be classified as acceleration strategies for high schoolers to give them some early taste of college. They all have virtues, and JFF encourages school districts and colleges to promote a full complement of these approaches to maximize students' momentum into and through college. Starting from the far right and then going counterclockwise, articulated credit is when a student takes a course in high school for which a partnering college agrees to provide college credit upon that student's enrollment at that college. Although it provides some element of acceleration, we tend to believe that it is even more powerful for students to earn college credit on a transcript upon successful completion of the course, really as currency that they can take to that college or other colleges of their choosing. Now moving over a bit on the chart, pardon me, I'm staying on the same chart, to the concurrent enrollment description. Concurrent enrollment is often used interchangeably with the term of dual enrollment. But in Minnesota and in some other states, it specifically refers to the dual enrollment of students in college courses taken on the high school campus, typically with groups of other high school students and often taught by a high school teacher who has the credentials to offer the course for college credit as an adjunct college faculty member. Middle colleges are high schools that are located on college campuses. Originally, they were designed to capitalize on the power of place, quote unquote. That is, targeting young people at risk of dropping out of high school who are encouraged to stay in school because of their exposure to just older peers who were focused on their studies, and because college was made attainable through its daily tangibility on a college campus. Now, whereas middle colleges were not originally designed to support students in college coursework, many found themselves offering that opportunity for students who proved ready. And in the early 2000s, many middle colleges also became early college high schools, which were explicitly designed so that low-income and underserved youth could earn 1 to 2 years of college credit or an associate's degree by high school graduation. Although many early college high schools are based on college campuses, many are not, though they all tend to be located, if not on a college campus, at least nearby to a 2-year or a 4-year college campus. AP and International Baccalaureate are curricula that are certified as college level, and they have assessments that determine whether students are qualified to have those courses apply for college credit, though colleges are not obliged to actually grant that credit. We see many early college high schools that employ both AP and dual enrollment as ways for students to earn college credit. So, now, some states like Minnesota, as I understand it, offer post-secondary enrollment options, or PSEO. This typically requires that high schools and colleges allow qualified 11th or 12th graders to take college course offerings at college and to have it paid for by the state through K-12 funds. And finally, I end here with one more broad definition to include as one type of dual enrollment, and that's the acceleration mechanism of dual credit. And that's when students actually receive both high school and college credit for the same course. Now that those distinctions, I hope, are clear, I just want to say a word about the evidence base for dual enrollment, which is growing increasingly strong, and which largely verifies the claims cited earlier about the benefits of dual enrollment. The research is really getting better at controlling for pre-existing similarities and differences in students' social and academic backgrounds, so that it can make stronger inferences about whether any differences in educational outcomes can be attributed to students' participation in dual enrollment. And the results indicate that dual enrollment is associated with gains in high school graduation, enrollment in college, higher performance and persistence in college, and the completion of a degree. Importantly, the research shows that these benefits hold for all students, suggesting that dual enrollment can be particularly a strong strategy for raising the college readiness and success of these populations, especially, that is, low-income and underserved groups. So for your reference, and this PowerPoint again will be made available to you after the conference, I've included here the cited resources for that research for those who have an interest in going directly to the source. I wanted to highlight a study that a JFF colleague and I did, which was original research on dual enrollment outcomes in Texas a couple of years ago using a quasi-experimental design. We looked at a sample of about 30,000 students from the graduating class of 2004 from the state of Texas, half of whom were dual enrollees and the other half of whom were students who were otherwise closely matched on academic and social background characteristics but did not participate in dual enrollment. What we found was that dual enrollment participants were 2.2 times more likely to enroll in a Texas 2-year or 4-year college. They were 2 times more likely to return for a second year of college, and they were 1.7 times more likely to complete a college degree. Something else that's really important to note here, these students did have to meet eligibility criteria of the colleges, usually a college placement test such as the Compass or AccuPlacer, but their K-12 standardized test scores on which they were matched represented a range of tested abilities. And although higher test scores were associated with a greater probability of taking dual enrollment regardless of test score, students who took dual enrollment had better outcomes on average. And this suggested to us that a wide range of high school students can benefit from college course taking. If anything, this strongly suggested dual enrollment should not just be limited to academic superstars, quote unquote, but to more students in the middle who could benefit greatly from the promise and push of dual enrollment. I want to make that point more strongly now by citing data from an innovation that has been specifically targeted and tailored to low-income youth. That is early college high schools, which I mentioned a little earlier. They were originally designed to small schools, though we are now seeing and supporting their expansion at JFF into comprehensive high schools. Since 2002, JFF has had the great privileges of supporting partners nationally in the expansion of early college high schools. There are currently over 280 schools in the country in 25 states, serving over 80,000 students. And their outcomes have really been impressive, as shown by the data that we've collected and analyzed, and as other third-party evaluations have shown. Data from these schools shows that they are indeed serving a largely low-income and first-generation college-going population, including many students of color, which these charts depict here. The other thing that our data are showing is students are graduating at far higher rates than comparable peers nationally and within their school districts. Most students are earning some college credit by the time they graduate high school, about a year's worth of credit on average, and it's no wonder that they're beating dual enrollment numbers nationally as depicted here, given that they're designed to deliver on these opportunities to students when high schools typically have only offered dual enrollment as an optional opportunity. And what's pretty astounding is that 30% of early college graduates have successfully completed an associate's degree by our count by high school graduation. Many of them and others continue on to college, is what we're seeing at higher rates than comparable peers nationally. So you might ask what's behind these numbers and what does it look like? I thought it would be enlightening for you to hear from some of the students themselves. The students in the short video you're about to view are from Hidalgo Early College High School on the South Texas-Mexican border. The school serves a largely Latino, low-income, and English language learner population. Also, to foreshadow a theme later in the presentation, it's important to note that many students in Hidalgo, a high school of 800 students, take not only general education college courses, but college courses in career and technical areas. The philosophy of the school being that every student should be on some kind of post-secondary pathway as part of high school. I think you'll find that what they have to say is quite consistent with the rationale for advancing early college and dual enrollment strategies.
Well, both of my parents, they never thought I would actually make it this far, you know. Just because in my childhood, I was never really much of a student that liked going to school.
My mom wanted to go to college, but unfortunately she couldn't. And I just want to make her proud and let her know that anything's possible.
Honestly, the only thing I knew about college back then was that it would be a lot harder than regular school. And we would have to take things into our own hands.
Here at Hidalgo Early College High School, my teachers, counselors, and principals, they make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do, complete it on time, and turning everything in, and to make sure that we're succeeding.
College is very different from high school. Like in high school, they're telling you have to do your work, you have to do this. And college is just that you do a lot of more work and you have to keep track of everything that's happening.
A major struggle that I had when I was taking my college courses was in U.S. history. I was never used to doing so much homework. I started off reading 4 pages out of a chapter, and then the next day read a little bit more. That experience taught me how to prepare.
I have earned 20 college credits. My medical terminology class really influenced me, whether be a doctor, a pharmacist, or an assistant, and that class really opened my eyes to see the variety of options that I have.
It isn't as hard as people make it out to be. If you're doing something that you love, it should be easy and enjoyable.
Well, of course, the most rewarding thing about taking college classes is that you'll graduate and already have college credit. It's less money that you have to pay and less time.
Since I was small, I used to always like knowing how things worked, building things, and creating things for my own. When I graduated from Hidalgo, I would like to go to college at UTPA and study industrial engineering.
In college, I am interested in studying psychology as well as journalism.
I want to major in marketing and business because I want to be able to have a job that allows me to express my creativity as well as my business skills.
When you reach the final day, you take the final exam, and you know that you passed it, it's a really major accomplishment, like, wow, I can actually do this at such a young age. So that's something I'm pretty proud of.
So I hope you enjoyed hearing from the students. I want to emphasize that supporting a wider range of students like these to take advantage of acceleration strategies is a function of hard work and good design. Early college schools really have embodied the elements of design that are imperative for reaching and supporting student success. It is not just dual enrollment, but an accelerated education strategy that harnesses dual enrollment and removes barriers to college for low-income youth through intentional design. It's really a strategy for ensuring, in some senses, that a wider range of students can take advantage of the benefits of dual enrollment. It starts with a college-ready academic program, pathways designed in partnership between K-12 and higher education that comprise a purposeful sequence of courses that give students a head start toward a college degree or credential, and as you saw earlier, often results in an AA degree for early college students. And this is really in contrast to cafeteria style or a la carte dual enrollment where students take any course of interest. It is something that is for all students, that is early colleges for all students, and so are the college courses, not offered as a track for selective students. And it includes a focus on improving instructional practices in addition to redesigning the structure of schools. Now, part of that head start on college is getting students exposed to the norms of college and whenever possible having them exposed to the power of place that I mentioned earlier that comes from being in a college environment. While acknowledging that districts will have to offer college courses on the high school campus is a big part of the mix of early college pathways, JFF has always encouraged districts and colleges to ensure that all students have some exposure to courses on college campuses as part of the early college experience. We've seen a lot of early colleges scaffold college course taking in this regard. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, having younger students start with college courses on the high school campus and then stepping up in later years to taking courses on their own or with small groups of classmates on the college campus with support from the school. It includes, that is, the early college design really includes extensive student academic and wraparound support systems to ensure that more students are prepared for and succeed in college level coursework, and they have the navigational guidance regarding admissions and financial aid that they need to make a strong transition into college after high school. Early college design elements also include school and district policies, routines, and cultural norms that support all of the other design elements. For example, supporting the use of time for teacher collaboration and professional development, and structures like advisories for adults and students to develop stronger relationships and attachments to their schools. I know that people often have questions about the type of support systems that early colleges use, so I'm including a non-exhaustive list here of examples. I realize that many schools may already have some of these supports in use, such as Avid and tutoring programs, for example. So as a starting point, it's important to take the support systems that you may already have and ensure that they are all aimed at the goal of an early college experience for all students, and to assess whether they are reaching all students at key times and grade levels. As a principle, the earlier these supports can be put into place, the better. It is better to have supported and prepared students academically in middle school, for example, than to wait until the 9th grade to double up on math periods, as we've seen some schools have to do to try to catch students up. A common practice across many early college schools that I'd point out is the explicit attention they pay to preparing students for college placement test requirements as early as the summer before entry into high school, giving students multiple opportunities to qualify for college courses and for teachers to understand college placement requirements, which aren't always perfectly aligned with high school standards. One other general note that I'd make before going away from that slide, about supports is that they ought to include strategies for scaffolding and supporting students who are taking college courses. For example, many schools have college seminar courses for students taking college courses that give them opportunities to work in study groups with their peers, and also explicitly coach students to develop the habits of good college students, including with regard to the management, for example, of time and strategies for reading textbooks. Increasingly, we've seen school systems, states, and colleges take the early college design and adapt it in various ways to try to reach more students, though all with the common goal of putting students on a pathway that gives them momentum in their post-secondary education while in high school. So, for example, PTEC schools, which stand for Pathways in Technology Early College High School, are being developed by IBM in partnership with schools and states. The schools are designed so that students within 6 years can graduate with degrees and certifications in information technology. IBM has pledged that graduates from the school will be the first in line for jobs demanding the skills they've learned, which makes it quite unique. PTEC schools in New York and Norwalk, Connecticut are leading the charge here nationally, with governors in each of those states having plans for expansion. There are other variations. We're also at JFF working in partnership with Harvard University to expand a similar approach through our 10-state Pathways to Prosperity network. States have sought out our help to work with 1 to 2 regions within each of their states to establish career guidance systems, work-based learning intermediary organizations, and dual credit systems that will enable school districts and college and industry partners to create grade 9 through 14 pathways that graduate students who have completed college coursework and credentials in key career and technical pathways aligned to local labor market demands. These are often in well-paying middle-skill jobs that you may have heard a thing or two about that are very valuable in this economy. And that also, we also want to make sure that students are not just prepared for those jobs, but also are prepared for the pursuit of further education should they wish to pursue it. We've also seen early college elements adopted by and adapted for back-on-track schools. And those schools are designed to work with students who have dropped out of high school or off track for graduation and at risk of dropping out. They use the promise of college-level coursework as a way to recapture and re-engage those students so that they complete high school or a GED while simultaneously starting a post-secondary education. This approach has had really significant take-up and interest in South Texas in the Rio Grande Valley with JFF's help. We're also working with a number of districts that envision providing an early college experience to all of their high school students and are implementing steps now to make that vision a reality. I will try to describe this more in later detail in my presentation and talk about the most experienced and accomplished district in this work, FAR San Juan Alamo Independent School District in Texas. For more detail about the examples I've just discussed, I want to refer you to the links on this slide when you are provided with the PowerPoint later. They include not only descriptions of the early college design elements, but also detailed documentation and tools that outline the steps schools can take to implement various elements of the early college design. One example is the top link to the Hidalgo Early College Toolkit, which I'll briefly give you a glimpse of here, just to give you a sense of the level of detail and the resources that are available. So you'll see here that it is organized by various categories of work that are common to implementing an early college school, including building strong college partnerships, recruiting, developing, and retaining talent at the staff level, and operating and financing an early college district. The video you saw earlier is also contained on this website, by the way. Other aspects of implementation include aligning courses and career pathways, creating a college-going culture, etc. And if you drill down on any of these topics, it will provide you with another layer of detail of tools, including, as you'll see, memoranda of understanding, information about qualifying test scores, some lessons learned about the steps that it takes to partner with a local college in this case, for example, and you also for communicating and getting out in front of common misperceptions around early college. So every topic in this website has a detailed list of tools in this regard. So I hope that you'll find that useful. You know, at this point, I would encourage you to take stock of and reflect on what you've heard in the presentation thus far. And before we go on to part two about local dual enrollment policies, I know that the leaders of your meeting would like you to take some time to discuss and process what you've heard thus far. Here are a couple of items for discussion that you and the leaders of the meeting might want to consider. How many and who participates now in your accelerated programs, including AP, IB, and dual and concurrent enrollment? Who's not being served? And what are the barriers that keep more students from participating? Another set of questions: what support systems do you already have in place in your district? Could any of these be expanded to reach more students and systematically prepare all students for college-level courses by the end of high school? What would it take to do so? Part two of my presentation focuses on key policies and strategies on dual enrollment in early college. And you know, it comes from helping local partnerships try to implement early college and dual enrollment. JFF has learned a lot about the policy barriers and enablers. And we have frequently advised locals, state and federal education leaders and policymakers about what they can do to be more supportive of early college and dual enrollment. So because I know that many of you will be in Minnesota and will need to communicate with local and state leaders about your needs as you begin or expand your work, this part of the presentation provides an overview of the general advice we give in case that it can help you in developing and advocating for policies to help advance your efforts. So finally, I'll end this part of the presentation by describing efforts in a local school district that is exploiting favorable state policies to advance its vision of providing every student with an early college experience. Now, until recently, dual enrollment policies, which often govern the movement of students' credits, funding, and teachers across K-12 and higher ed, were largely designed to provide a head start on college for high school students who were already ready of their own accord. That's still a worthy goal, one we would not dispute, but JFF would add that dual enrollment policies ought also to be geared toward providing a bridge to college for students traditionally underrepresented in college. That is the driving assumption for the principles listed here that should guide dual enrollment policy making. The emphases here are on access, alignment in curriculum between K-12 and post-secondary, and data-based decision-making across the K-12 and higher ed systems in a state. I just want to do a quick run-through of the areas of dual enrollment that are subject to local and sometimes state policy. Now, given that my presentation today is one largely focused on issues of local design and practice, I'm not going to touch now upon the predominantly state issues of governance, finance, and data systems and monitoring, but instead on issues which tend to be in the purview of local high school and college partners. So regarding eligibility and access, which you see here on the left-hand side, policies need to make sure that students are prepared for the subjects that they are taking at the college level as agreed upon by K-12 and higher ed partners. Ideally, they should take multiple indicators of college readiness into account. For example, not just test scores, but also high school grade point average. And not close students out of being able to take college courses in certain subject areas for which they're ready just because they haven't shown readiness in other subject areas. So the criteria should be subject specific, in other words. Now, regarding quality, these courses must pass the snuff test of college courses to have integrity. We say that there's no such thing as quote-unquote dual enrollment courses. There are only college courses taken by dual enrollees that may be offered for dual credit. Big difference there. And ensuring that the courses students are taking are college courses through the equivalence of syllabi, assessments, and teacher qualifications as I've listed here is really critical to the integrity of the whole dual enrollment enterprise and strategy. So regarding supports, states and locals really should ensure that they have in place critical structures and agreements that address the support systems that students need to be successful in early college and dual enrollment. For example, partnerships should have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, outlining the roles and responsibilities of each partner and should employ someone who is a liaison between the institutions whose job it is to ensure that high school students are connected to and supported in high support pathways in the college environment. Now, we've seen some states actually stipulate that certain dollars and space for dual enrollment also be dedicated to serving overage and undercredited youth, those that would be well served by the back on track schools that I described in my previous section of the presentation. So I'm going to stop there on the policy front, and to wrap up this whole presentation, I'd like to leave you with an example of what can happen when a school district works at scaling up early college and dual enrollment opportunities over years within a favorable, even if not perfect, state policy environment. The district is FAR San Juan Alamo, which also goes by PSJA for short. It's a multi-district district, I should say multi-community school district, and it rests within the state of Texas. This chart shows that since 2004, the state of Texas has made policy changes that have resulted in phenomenal growth in dual enrollment between 2004 and 2010, which more recent stats show, though I haven't included them here, those stats show that this upward trend continues. Note here as well that the growth occurred for subgroups of Latino and African American students in addition to all students, and they're usually populations typically underrepresented in higher education. They are still not participating, if you look at the graph, they're still not participating in proportion to their representation among all students, but the gap is closing as the rate of their growth in participation is some of the highest in the state. So the policies that were responsible for this include a change in the state funding formula in 2003, which once stipulated that only either K-12 or higher ed could claim funding for dual enrollees. Since 2003, both, thanks to a legislative change, both K-12 and higher ed can claim state funding for dual enrollees. In 2006, House Bill 1 was a huge college readiness and success bill that required school districts to provide access to at least 12 college credits, including an AP and dual enrollment, for all students, and provided high schools with over $200 per pupil supplemental funding to be used for strategies to raise their college and career readiness, which many districts use to offset the cost of college course taking by their students. And finally, around the same time, I think it was 2007, as noted here, House Bill 2237 was a high school redesign piece of legislation that provided funding for districts that implemented state-sanctioned school designs and models, among them early college high schools and STEM academies. So given the state commitment and policy change, it's no wonder that the growth in dual enrollment has been so notable throughout the state. Although what I like to talk about next is that for about 7 years, for around the same amount of time, there was an innovative superintendent who has been responsible for early college's use in the comprehensive school that you saw earlier in Hidalgo, Texas. His name is Daniel King, and he's been advancing early college strategies now for the past 7 years in the much larger 30,000 student district in PSJA. And he's really done that by growing a portfolio of early college schools in all his high schools. There are a number of different growth and saturation strategies depicted here. They include standalone schools in which all students can earn up to 2 years of college credit and an AA in both small schools and in one of the comprehensive high schools in PSJA. They include back-on-track schools designed to reach off-track and disconnected youth, which I talked about earlier. They include dual enrollment pathways, which is he calls dual-to-degree pathways, at 3 comprehensive high schools that give all upperclassmen the opportunity to earn 12 credits of college coursework. And they include school academies within each of the same 3 comprehensive high schools that offer students up to an associate's degree or 2 years of college credit that PSJA is using as learning labs really for the rest of the high school for eventually increasing college course taking opportunities and expanding them to other students as well. Now, not to toot my own horn here, but we're about to publish a paper that I've authored about these efforts in PSJA in November. You can expect to see it, and you know what it has taken to achieve the vision that we've outlined here, and some of the results that I'm about to talk about that are depicted on this slide. For now, I wanted to share with you some of the indicators of the district's progress. There's been, for one, a huge increase in high school graduation rates by the state's measure of high school graduation rates, as you can see here. About half of all PSJA seniors are also graduating with college credit, and a percentage that has risen over the years. That is a percentage, rather, that has risen over the years, and we expect will continue to rise. Further and similarly, those credits are substantial and are resulting in associate's degrees for increasing numbers of seniors upon graduation. Currently for 21% of the graduating class, which is expected to go up to about a third next year. Pretty impressive. That all being said, the district is the first to say that their work is not done yet, but it's obviously headed in a very compelling direction. And I want to leave it with you as an example of what can be accomplished with vision, leadership, and support of state policies. It seems to me like these conditions may be starting to coalesce in Minnesota, and I encourage you to take advantage of the opportunities to take your own steps to innovate and increase the college and career success of all the young people you are serving. And I hope that the information in this presentation has been at least somewhat helpful and informative in this regard. Let me end by saying I wish you the best of luck as you move forward, and thanks for your attention today.